over half a century to finally realize what it means to understand that I was never here for me. I've never made this journey for me. I made it for you. And I made it for my dad. And I made it for the countless silent, hurting, broken, and tragically abused people who have lost their voice. They have no voice. That's the purpose of my journey. And that journey has woven a pretty important garment. You have one too. I pray that tonight you'll go home and in a moment of prayer allow the Holy Spirit to show you the very spiritual garment that you're wearing. I've seen mine. It is amazing. I wish you could see it tonight. It's not this old mess. I mean, some of this stuff came from consignment, Goodwill, and God knows where else. Ain't no telling where I mix and match things. I'm talking about the garment that Papa has been weaving across the journey of my life. If you could see it tonight and you would look close, as I said, there are many threads that are brilliant. They even glitter in design, and they are the threads of childhood sexual and physical abuse. You would be tempted to pull them out, but please don't pull them out. I'm so honored to wear that garment. I'm so honored to wear it because those threads signify not who I am, but they signify the course of an important journey that has led me to a place of true freedom, to be able to hold that garment out to someone who has not found their voice yet and let them know that only in true freedom and only in true freedom can there be real transparency to bring you to that freedom. And there's also a thread of homosexuality that runs all through that garment. Ran all through my teen years, ran into my adult years, ran into the years when I was serving on staff in churches. It ran into the years when I was a young father and husband. Please don't pull that out. I need that thread to stay there. I am not ashamed of that thread. It is a detail of a journey that I wouldn't trade anything for. Because, see, I come face to face with young men every day who have no idea how they got where they are, and they have no idea how to get out. I need that thread to stay there. They have no idea that homosexuality has nothing to do with sex. They have no idea that homosexuality is about nothing more than a child who is broken and unaffirmed and seeking unconditional love. They have no idea that they weren't born gay. But they also have no idea that the roots of this great tree that is now resurrected in their life, with these many leaves of sexual manifestation, that the very seed of that tree and the very original root of that tree always, 100% of the time, goes back into very, very, very early childhood. Always. Always. You cannot produce for me a homosexual male that under a lie detector test or in a place of safety where they will bare their heart to you would not tell you that for as long as they can remember, they have always felt different. They have always felt different. They have always been attracted more to the male than to the female. I know what that's like. I used to get on the school bus when I was about 6 years old, and sometimes I would miss school for a couple of days because my dad had beat me within an inch of my life. And I couldn't get back on the school bus until I was at least concealed enough that no one would be asking questions. And there was a young man that drove our school bus. His name was Huel Rogers. At that time, back in those days, they let the seniors and some of the football players drive the bus. Lord, don't let that happen in Atlanta, Georgia now. Ain't no telling what would happen. But in that day they did, and Huel Rogers, I write about him in my book. I think I may have changed his name in the book, but that's his real name. I've actually run across Huel and not met with him personally, but know exactly where he is now through a friend of a friend. And he was a good-looking young man, had curly blonde hair, bright blue eyes, Pepsodent white smile, square jaw, the all-American boy that everybody wanted to look like. I mean, just stunning looks. The whole Brad Pitt look-alike kind of guy. And oftentimes at 6 years old, when I would get on the bus, Huel would look me straight in the eye And oftentimes he'd put his arm around me and say, Danny, have you been sick? We missed you. Are you okay? Man, do I remember distinctly what that felt like. I remember looking in his eyes and quickly acknowledging that they were the bluest blue I had ever seen. And wishing that I didn't have this little dark chopped off hair that my dad made me have. I wanted curly blonde hair like his. And I wanted to be handsome like he is. And I noticed how straight and perfect and white his teeth were. But what I really noticed was how good it felt that he actually made eye contact with me and asked me how I felt. Was I okay? No one had ever asked me that before. No one in my home had ever asked me anything that would even vaguely compare to that. No one wanted to know how I felt. No one cared what I thought. No one certainly ever said I missed you or anything close to I love you. Was there anything wrong with what this young man did? Absolutely not. Was there anything wrong with the way I felt about it? The way a secretly abused child would feel about that? Absolutely not. But Satan takes that in your brokenness, and because homosexuality is about nothing more than a lack of male protective guardianship over the heart. And I'm not talking about bringing home a paycheck. I'm not talking about taking him to a few sports games or teaching him how to cut the yard right. I'm not talking about all that. I'm talking about a male father figure that this boy knows from jump, from day one, that when I walk in the room, my daddy's heart skips a beat. He adores the ground I walk on. He thinks I'm the best of the best. Listen, if there's one glaring piece of evidence that the enemy cannot get around, and everyone under the sound of my voice tonight, however you're hearing me, don't you ever forget this. Don't ever forget this. There's one piece of evidence that you can't get around. I'm 58 years old. I have forgotten more about homosexuality than most people are willing to talk about. I've been in it, around it, through it, upside down, all around it. I know all about the gay cruising. I know all about the whole concept of the whole world. I know how it begins, I know how it develops, and I know what it ends up illusionary looking like in your life. I know what those leaves of manifestation do to religious hearts, to cause you to reject the person and to judge the person and to quickly quote Leviticus this and Leviticus that, and if you'll clean up your act, then maybe I'll accept you back again. I know it all, inside out, been there, lived that, done that, bought that t-shirt many times. But you can't produce for me one homosexual male who will tell you that the male authority figure in my life, whether it was my father or whether they did not have a father but some other male stepped in to be the guardian over that life and to love and cherish that child, that whoever that male authority figure was, you'll never have that homosexual male tell you that he and I were just like this. His heart skipped a beat when I walked in the room. He loved me. He affirmed me. He told me every day how precious I was. He told me he loved me. He encouraged me to my destiny. He was a rough and tumble sports guy. I wanted to be music and ballet and whatever else. And he told me, go for it, son. Go for it. And when I did, every time I looked out there, my dad was on the front row. Big, strong man that couldn't identify at all with my artsy side. He was on the front row. You can't produce me a boy who'll tell you that. In all of the history of homosexuality, do you not find it odd that there's not even one that exists? Not one. Now, some of you sitting there thinking, I beg to differ with you, son. I know a good Christian family that's got a boy right now as queer as a $3 bill. I know his daddy. I know him well. He's a good man. He's a hard-working man. He's a humble man. Does that sound anywhere vaguely familiar to you tonight? You don't have to be abused for this door to be opened. You just simply have to be left unaffirmed, unadored, and unprotected. So let me give you a simple formula tonight. We're not going to free every male in homosexuality that's walking even in the church today. And when I say free, we're not going to free them to the level that you'll be okay with. Some of them we will. I'll make even a bolder statement. I can show you how that every one of them can truly be free, but not every one of them will ever walk out the performance in a way that the religious heart will deem as acceptable. That ship has sailed for some. And believe me, I have experienced enough to know that the organized church is never going to get behind anything that I just said. Because if I had $1 for every time an American pastor has said to me, Danny, I appreciate your story, I appreciate the power of it, I appreciate what God has done in your life, but I could never let you speak on my platform. If I did, what would we do with the people who might come forward? And I'm thinking, I don't know, what is it you do? What is it you actually do? Do you build buildings and take offerings and build more buildings and build great music teams and all the things that are very precious and very necessary? But is that what you call church? Is that what you're talking about? And are you saying you couldn't let me speak on your platform because when I get to that homosexual part, somebody's liable to walk the aisle and come down and lift their arms and say, oh man, I've been struggling my whole life with this stronghold and I just want to be free tonight. You don't think anybody's that crazy in your church, do you, Pastor? I've told many of them that. They've heard you preach. They've heard, they know your heart. They know the heart of a man who would make such an ignorant statement is, if I let you share your story, what would I do with the people who might come forward? Do you think the people who have heard you preach and have seen the true exposure of your heart, do you think they're dumb enough to walk the aisle, even with me there, and say that that is their struggle? They've seen how that's fared for people before them. It ain't went too well. I've even had pastors tell me before, brother, I know your gift of discernment is good in this area. I bet you could stand in 1,000 crowd room and you could see where every person is sitting that's struggling with homosexuality. Yeah, what's your point? Well, I need you to share with me where they are. Yeah, what's your point? Well, I believe as senior pastor of the church, I need to know where they are. Yeah, what's your point? What are you going to do with them? Are you going to love them? I mean, I can walk in any church in America and Helen Keller can discern where most of them are sitting. I would submit this to you. I don't believe that the church in the lowercase spelling that I talked to you about this morning, that thing that's just denominational and organizational, that's forgot what it ever organized to do in the first place, I don't believe that that group of people gives diddly squat about anybody being free of homosexuality. I believe that they pretty well know where about 90% of them are sitting on any given Sunday, and they don't care as long as you don't take the mask off. Because if you take that mask off, then you're going to require something of a religious heart that it does not have to offer you. You will take that mask off seeking freedom. And that religious heart has no freedom to offer you. None whatsoever. So if you want people to be free of this stronghold, number one, it would behoove us to know what it is, how it begins, what it's truly about, and what you can do very proactively to offer a safe place for these hearts to be unveiled, to where they could meet what I said in that 700 Club piece that the pastor offered me, and that is, Danny, you are a treasure of the kingdom. I didn't say on that piece, he went further. He said, we'll pay for your counseling. You're on staff. We want you to stay on staff. We want to continue to pay you. I won't let you go. I will never let you go. And some of you who may still have just a little bit of the cage up in you, a little bit of religion down in you, may be sitting there thinking, I don't know about that. I'll tell you what, I don't know about that at all. I don't believe it like that. I don't believe